What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to bring you a quick 1 month review of my new mechanical keyboard. This is a Tofu 65% mechanical keyboard. I actually ordered it from KBDfans. I believe that's the only place you can get it from, and this is one of their fully assembled models, so it was already pre-built for me. You can get the parts individually, but I didn't have the time or the resources or really the knowledge. I've never built a mechanical keyboard before to do it, so I just went ahead and let them do it for me. So I'll kind of go over the order process, shipping, delivery, and then the overall build and my first thoughts of this keyboard, who it may be for, may not be for. The first thing I want to mention is that this is an expensive keyboard. It's $180 without the switches, so you do get to pick your own switches. There's over 50 different kinds you can choose. I chose the Zealio 67 gram switches, which are another $70. So the keyboard ran about $250 without the actual keycaps. And the keycaps, these ones that are on it now, are around $49. So you're looking about a $300 keyboard, which may be a little excessive for some people. But for me, a keyboard is something you usually keep for the foreseeable future. I've kept a keyboard for an old Ducky keyboard for 10 years before, so it's something you usually keep for a long time. It's not something you generally replace, generally ever. Keyboards are usually made to last a lifetime. At least I've never had one fail on me. Even cheap $25 keyboards seem to last a lifetime, so I recommend getting what you want and something that, if you use it all the time, every day, getting something you're going to enjoy. So the order process was fairly simple. You just go through, you pick if you want, there's like 8 different colors. You can pick if you want a brass or an aluminum backplate. You don't have any control over the actual PCB, which is the KBD67 Revision 2. This does have RGB backlighting. The only reason I know that is because I accidentally turned it on and couldn't figure out how to turn it off. And to control the actual firmware on this keyboard is a QMK firmware. So previously with my Ducky keyboards, everything was actually built into the keyboard, so it made it a little bit easier, or I was a little bit more familiar with it. With the QMK, I'm not as familiar with that firmware, with flashing your keyboard if you want to change keys on it, or if you want to do anything customizable with the macros. You will have to kind of get to know that software to do that. It's pretty simple, but for me, with the first time using it, it did take me a little bit to get it downloaded and just get familiar with actually doing it, and you have to follow the steps specifically, otherwise it won't work. So aluminum plate, this is all machined aluminum. It's very similar to, let's say, a MacBook Pro. Cherry screw and stabilizer, so you do have those. USB-C, that's pretty standard nowadays. And a PVD brass plate on the back. Basically what that does is gives it some weight, which I will get into when I get to the build quality of this. So shipping total, it took about 2 to 3 weeks to get it when it comes to building it and shipping it. I believe it either came from Thailand or China, so shipping was pretty quick, but it took 5 or 6 business days to build, and then it shipped out, and I think it took about 5 to 6 other business days before it got here. So I would allow for at least 3 weeks to get it. And they do run out of stock from time to time, so take that into account. The gray actually took a little while before it was back in. That's the color I wanted, so I had to wait around for that. But the order process, them notifying you when it's done, when it's shipped out, is pretty self-explanatory, and I believe it was FedEx shipping. Arrived well packaged, no damage or anything along that lines. So when it comes to the build quality, this thing is heavy. That's one thing that is positive and a negative. The negative is that if you're planning on traveling with this, don't buy this keyboard. Buy one of their plastic or polycarbonate or whatever you want to call it. Do not buy the actual aluminum keyboard because it is heavy. It's probably 3 or 4 times heavier than, let's say, the Ducky, the Mecha Mini, which is also a metal keyboard. It's just really way too heavy for travel. But if you're not traveling with it, this thing is a luxury. It's built very similar to like a MacBook Pro, so you have these very sharp hard lines. It has almost the same color and finish to it, so overall I'm pretty happy with that. It feels solid. It's not going to go anywhere. You're never going to get any flex or any type of shake or anything with this keyboard. It's a very heavy, well-built keyboard. The machining's nice. Everything seems well put together. There was a little spot up here on one of these screws that looks like it was maybe screwed in a little too tight or damaged a little bit, but overall it feels like a $180 keyboard. Happy with color, not necessarily keycaps, but with the overall color of the gray. It's really nice, similar to the space gray and the MacBook Pro. If you're an Apple product, it would go really well with something like that if you're wanting to match things up. The switches, all the switches are going to be different, but the Zealio 67 gram switches are excellent. They were a $70 option to add them on, but I would highly recommend going and looking at or buy a switch tester where you can test out all different switches. The Zealio switches they're like a luxury Cherry MX Brown, if you ask me. Very stable, very little wobble, very smooth. These are not lubed. The KBDfans is not lubed. They're Tofu keyboards that I'm aware of, because that's a lot of work. And make sure you get the right switches, because this is soldered on. This is not hot swappable, so we are stuck with the switches you want, but I really like the Zealio switches. 67 grams, probably 67 gram is probably my preferred go-to route. So low quality, great. Switches, great, because you have options there. The RGB backlight's kind of weak compared to Ducky. Granted, these aren't shine-through keys, but I did accidentally turn it on. It just wasn't the best quality out there compared to, say, a Ducky keyboard, which has some of the best RGB lighting out there. But I don't care about the RGB lighting, so that doesn't bother me at all. But if you do, if that's your go-to move, I would look at one of the Ducky keyboards, because you're going to enjoy that a lot better, because they have a lot more customizable with the RGB than this actual keyboard does. So the weight is nice. It does have rubber feet on the bottom, which aren't the best. I prefer the more long linear ones because they have more surface. If you look, there's not much surface there for that to actually stick to anything. It doesn't move a lot on my desk, but if, let's say, you use some pledge and clean your desk off, it's going to move around a little bit until that pledge kind of gets off there. But besides that, that's my only real negative, is that if you're looking to travel with it, it's probably not the best keyboard, because it's just a little bit too heavy, and the feet are not the greatest. That's mainly a personal preference. I just would prefer a little bit longer feet so it doesn't move around as much. But once you get it on your desk, it's so heavy that it is not necessarily going to go anywhere. I mean, this is a heavy, heavy keyboard. I don't have anything to weigh it, but it's easily 3 times as much as the Mecha Mini was. It's just a really, really heavy, solid keyboard. Now the keycaps, I'll go ahead and touch base on those. They sell keycaps on KBDfans also. I actually like the keycaps, the styling of them. They're double shot PBT, so they'll last forever. They're not backlit or shine through. The only thing is that the color is a little off. This was more of a yellowish color in the actual picture, and this is like a neon orangish yellowish mix. It's a very odd color, so I probably would make sure I know what the color is and 100% sure before I order any keycaps from them. And they have all kinds of different keycaps, over 9 pages, so you do have plenty of options there. So based off a month of this, I would highly recommend this keyboard to anyone out there. Just know you're going to pay a fortune for it, $300 probably, most likely, depending on what switches you get. But you can get Cherry MX or Gateron switches and get, they're like $14 for a whole set of them. So you can get cheaper options than that. But this thing is a tank. It's going to last forever. And I prefer buying stuff that is a little more, maybe on a more quality side of things, and something that's a little more unique than just your standard keyboards or Razer keyboards or Corsair keyboards out there, which are more common. If you don't want to shell out the money for this, I'd recommend any of the Ducky keyboards. They're great also. That's what I had before. I had a Ducky Maya Pro, Ducky SF, and a Ducky Mecha Mini, kind of trying them all out, and I landed on this. But this is the keyboard I'm going to keep for life, or at least probably for the next 10 years. I probably will get different keycaps at times, but keycaps are hard to find, especially if you want specific ones. Usually you have to group order them, and you usually wait around 6 months or even a year before they actually come out. It did come with a USB cable to actually connect it to your computer, which is very short. You're going to need some type of extension, which I have an extension for mine, which is fine, but it doesn't have the best. It was braided, just standard black, and looks nice, but I would prefer a little bit longer keyboard for how much our USB connector for how much you actually pay for this. So overall, very happy with it. The customer service was great. I didn't have to, email them on any quality issues, but they updated me as my order went. So that's something that I appreciate. So that's it. If you guys have any questions, comments, leave them below. I will get a more long-term review of this up as that goes, but so far the only thing I plan on doing is different keycaps down the road, but I'm not in a big hurry for that. And I'll probably get some type of coil braided or a different kind of USB cable with a breakaway, just so I don't have to have this. It's literally wrapped around the side of my monitor, so it doesn't look the best. So I'll probably get something like that down the road. But besides that, I am very happy with this, and don't plan on looking back. It's a nice, well-built keyboard. Again, comments, messages, leave them below. I'll get back to you if you have any questions. Have a good rest of the weekend and be safe out there, and I'll see you guys next time.